Welcome everyone to the live stream with Punkt. I'm really excited to do this. I'm really excited to have the team here to answer all of your questions, and hopefully, we get through them. We have a couple of questions for the Punkt team, but we are going to first start with a couple of basic questions. What is Punkt? What's the philosophy behind it? Things of that nature. Again, welcome to the live stream with Punkt. We have two of the team members. We have Philip and Marcia. So please,
Hello, hello everybody.
write your messages. Make sure to put your questions in the chat. We're gonna get through them. And to those of you who already decided to get some questions before, make sure to we'll make sure to ask them as well. But Marcia or Philip, please let us get started. Who are you, and what's Punkt all about?
Okay, well, my name is Marcia, and I'm head of brand communications, and have been since Punkt was founded, really, or debuted, to be more correct. Philip works with product development, and you've been at Punkt for how long now, Philip?
3 years almost. Yeah, 3 years in May.
So the company is based in Switzerland, where Philip is now in Lugano. I'm in Turin in Italy because we're working from home in this period. The company was founded in 2008 by Petter Nebbe, who is a Norwegian entrepreneur, and he was driven by the desire to bring some fresh air into the consumer electronic market by introducing consumer electronic products that last and that substantially do one thing at a time. The idea behind that was to try and reduce some of the distraction which has entered into our lives through pervasive technologies, and also to take back some control over our usage of technology and the space that it occupies in our daily lives. Since then, since the very beginning, Jasper Morrison has been art director of Punkt and designer of 5 of the products in our range. We also have one other product that was made by another designer who was a student of Jasper's. So he's very much in control. Design is a very important part of what Punkt does, as is real life and tangible objects. In 2015, Punkt released the MP01, which is the first mobile phone that the company released. It had a huge response from the media, from the outside world at that time. Talking about digital detox was quite an unusual. I think we were probably the first. I'm pretty sure the first in that space, with the return of what people call feature phones, dumb phones. And from then in 2018, we launched a version of a new mobile phone, which is the MP02, which also has 4G LTE. So you can link to another device with an internet connection from the telephone. So this was a move into the direction of getting a more connected type of experience with a mobile phone, but still essentially using a voice phone for calls and text only.
All right. Well, that gives us a little bit of an overview of what is Punkt. We have a couple of questions already lining up, and we're going to get to them. But before, I wanted to talk a little bit more about your personal lives, philosophy, and kind of like how have you seen a device, a very minimal device, enter into your life, and also kind of like just understand why switch to something so simple. The Punkt MP02 or the MP01, if you still have 2G, they don't have apps. They don't have, the big things. Some of them are just, very basic calls, text messages, and of course, a couple of different integrations for the MP02. But why a dumb phone, or why create a basic phone for you? In your opinion, why was it important?
It's important because I think a lot of things have been overlooked. I think the first iPhone came to the market in 2007, if I'm not wrong. So that's a year before Punkt was founded. I think with the excitement and the arrival of new technologies and innovations, a lot has been overlooked. Our free time, our relationships, the amount of technology that we consume without understanding what we're signing up for. I think if you take into consideration that most people have anyway a computer or a tablet, it's a lifestyle choice if you decide to have internet in your pocket with you 24 hours, 7 days a week. I use the MP02 as my primary phone, so I'm what could be considered as a power user. I don't believe I miss out on any conveniences. There is an argument to that because a lot of people believe that the inconvenience is too much. I think for Punkt, philosophically, life always has to have a bit of friction, and it's the friction that can also make things interesting. I think the idea that everything is a click away is attractive from many points of view, but can also create a dependency on technology and also on the virtual world. So the life I lead is a very normal life that a normal person who works and travels, and I go to Switzerland 2 times a week. I work from home, but I use a computer. I access the internet via computer. When I travel, I have a companion device of a tablet. It has a more sensible sized keypad, so it's easier to write and work with. And I feel that if I connect to the internet with the MP02 hotspot and not a public Wi-Fi, I feel safer in terms of my personal data and what have you. So I think it's a more peaceful way of living. I know that for a lot of people, there are some things which they are unable to sacrifice, but there's no reason to say why you can't use an MP02 as a secondary phone, which I believe is the case, for example, of Philip. So you use a smartphone, and then when you want to go away or spend time with your family in the evenings after work, or spend a weekend in which you don't access your emails, not because you have to access your emails on a smartphone, but the temptation is very big, and they are designed so that you get sucked in. So yes, can also be a weekend phone or an after work phone, and many people use them in that way.
Philip, do you have anything to add?
No, I would just agree with Marcy. I started using the MP01 as a beta tester back in 2015, and I realized quickly that not having the convenience of always being online is a huge opportunity to free up time, or to be able to focus, or to do what you want to do without being tempted. And back in 2015, I was 24, I think. And as a mid-20s, there is always something to do. There is always some notifications coming in, and being able to separate that was a huge upside for me, switching over to a more minimalistic approach.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. A lot of people worry, right? And I think that after this, we'll switch into a couple of the questions and come back to the philosophy. But a lot of people worry that having a basic device like the Punkt MP02, or the light phone, or some of your competitors are very minimal. They have only tools. They don't have the conveniences of, for example, when you're traveling, you said that you have to bring a tablet. It makes sense for you. And other people are like, well, I need to have the QR codes and passports and all of these different things, and it's easier to have them all in one device. I have my music player, my phone, my email, my everything in one device instead of bringing a couple of devices here and there. I think this goes with one of the questions on the stream that says, can a phone like this free up time for other meaningful activities like book reading and cooking and things of that nature? So have you felt like you missed out, and why are people so afraid to go minimal in this way?
I think that the reliance on technology has been something that has happened without that much consciousness. I think obviously there's always the temptation that something's going on in the virtual world or online that could be entertaining. I think entertainment is a huge part of its success. But the question remains, do we need to be constantly entertained? Can it not be that in moments of boredom or when nothing is happening, you can also tap into your own creativity? Certainly, we conducted a survey shortly after the pandemic. So obviously, if you talk to me, I live and breathe Punkt, so it may seem biased, but following the pandemic, we wanted to see how people's relationship with technology had changed, if at all, due to the fact that with the restrictions, people spent more time at home on their own. it was very interesting to see this survey reached more than 1,000 people from 16 different countries. So it was quite an extensive. It's very interesting to see that actually people did decide at a certain point to get into cooking or reading in their free time, because the sensation of detachment, but seeing the other world, being connected to the other world, but not being able to participate in it, caused some sort of depression or unhappiness. So actually people on their own accord, people who actually have iPhones or Android smartphones, decided that perhaps cooking or gardening, reading, were actually very positive, that had a positive effect on their mood, more than the fact of being able to miss out or participate in something. I think it's very much about being in the moment. So when you're living the moment and you're doing something in the moment, you can get a lot of personal gratification from that.
Yeah. Philip, do you feel like, especially closer to our generation, right? Do you feel like it hinders your productivity in any way, like not having a smartphone, not having the instant communication and relaying information?
I don't think so. I just think that you need to be able or develop the skill to plan a bit better. I mean, talking about the QR codes traveling back and forth. I live on the border of Italy, and there's no issue for me traveling anywhere because I can always send my QR codes from a computer, from a desktop through Pigeon or Signal to myself to have those QR codes at ready, or as we were speaking of, having such a device will let me tune down and it will let me turn off because I realize that there is not a huge necessity for the world to always be able to get in touch with me. You can, if you want to, just be shut off and see what happens, because I don't know, you might start reading, you might start cooking, gardening, or just sit there and contemplate. And it is a lovely thing to just be there.
Okay. All right. Well, let's get to a couple of the questions. There's a lot of people that, since you released the new generation Punkt MP02, have a lot of questions because they feel as if, hey, what's going on? Why did you move? What are our old devices going to be? So we have a couple of questions like that. So Adam says, can you describe the decision that was made to move away from Blackberry services for security and create your own security solution?
Yes.
Sure. So this was also in line with the introduction of apostrophe as a environment for us to be able to create an adaptive operating system that will make it more easier for us to have a better baseline for the future as well. So then we needed to go our separate way to create this and have also more internal control about what the security protocols would do with the phone, so that we were able to see and lock down this we can improve, this we can improve, and this is how we want to do our products moving forward.
So I know that Blackberry has a review process, right? Like, whenever you write a new part of the operating system, was just doing it in-house easier for you guys to just push updates and as a part of the process for you to not have to rely. I know I had the original MP02 and it was very difficult sometimes, like, the updates would come very, very spread apart. So was it just more like, hey, we can control more of the software and hardware solution in order to push out better updates for the user?
Yeah, not only better. Sorry, Marcy, go ahead.
No, go.
Yeah, so that is one point definitely, that we're able to release more firmwares update and have it at a more regular basis than what we're up to right now, as I said. Marcy?
Punkt is, after all, we're in the slow tech space, but we are still very much a technology company. The MP02 as a device came to market in 2018, so it already has a couple of years. It's already a couple of years old. It is built to last, so there's no reason why it shouldn't exist for another however many years. But in terms of the tech space itself, Punkt first had the MP01, which was 2G. When we introduced a 4G phone, because privacy and security is such a huge part of the Punkt philosophy, we with the connection to the internet and the MP02, we had to have a security policy. So we outsourced that security to Blackberry Secure. But 2 years down the line, and keeping the future in mind, so what Punkt will develop and the other products it plans to develop in the future, it makes more sense for us to bring security in-house and build up an environment, like Philip said, or an ecosystem that can help us also bring other products to market and have a build security into our products from the ground up, from the MP02 to whatever the future might hold.
No, understood. Now, when you introduce a new product that is very similar to the old product, except for the operating system, even though the operating system still looks similar, right? There may be some things that in the background, a lot of people have questions like this one from Luigi. He says, I have an old generation MP02. Will its software continue to be updated? How are you guys planning to support those users that have already given, some of their money and commitment to a long-term project? How are they going to be supported in the future?
So we're still able to push out APK-based solutions for as a single stand feature. Let's take the calculator. If there's an error in the calculator, we can send out the update on the calculator. The system-wide updates can also be pushed out if need be for a security reason. If you find there's a security breach, we're still able to push out a system-wide update on the MP01, the MP02 first generation, definitely. But it will be easier for us to push out these single APK feature updates on the generation 1 as well. Yeah.
Okay, so there's still some hope if somebody finds. So, for example, I know that the calendar feature is very bare bones. Like, it only allows viewing it. It doesn't allow me to edit it, right? And that's one of my personal questions, right? Like, there's a couple of areas that I'm hoping that it will be improved throughout the future, or at least I would like to know a little bit more of the rationale of, I have a calendar, but I can only see it. Why can I add something to it, right? Is there something that you guys are working on, things of that nature? Last question from the kind of like from the audience, and then we'll move into a couple of my personal questions. Will be is there I think I'll show this one. Will there be a WhatsApp compatible version? You guys introduced Signal, but I see nope. Can you explain your decision behind that? Because a lot of people use WhatsApp throughout the world, right? Like, it's huge. It's very, it's widely available and widely used. But why is it that you are not, you're choosing Signal over WhatsApp in this case?
It's a question of privacy. WhatsApp would be, many people have asked us, obviously, for WhatsApp. But in a product development phase at Punkt, we always have 8 principles that we have to guide us in what features and what we put on to a telephone or to a product that comes to market. Very often we start the process with everything, and then it's a question of stripping back to see where is the breaking point where you can still tame technology, protect and safeguard people's personal data, while offering the services that they need in order to have a balanced connection. WhatsApp never passes the line for Punkt, and it has been extensively discussed. It's not as if we say, okay, no way, it's evil. We have a engaged and passionate community who also care very deeply about the philosophy of the company. Although it's still a relatively niche market, it's a market that doesn't really have solutions or alternatives from other people. And so privacy and security is a huge problem with big tech. And moving forward, we believe it's going to be even more important to protect people's personal data. And WhatsApp just doesn't correspond to the brand philosophy from this point of view.
Yeah. One more question. I think this one's important because it helps us understand, when it comes to privacy security, being bare bones, being long term. This is something that you guys care about. So one of the main things is repairability. One of our people in the chat say, I like my Punkt MP02, but I wonder about repairs, especially battery replacements, right? These are not 15, 20 years. I mean, some of them may be, but something may go wrong. Do you have any commitment for how long you'll repair Punkt mobile products for after they launch?
I mean, as long as we have spare parts, we can repair them. I still get one of the first products from Punkt was the DP01 landline phone. I still get those sent back to me, and I do repair them, and we do ship them back, and that's 7 years ago.
Yeah,
something
that
like that.
was,
It was
2010.
Oh.
Well, there you go, guys. You have support as long as you're willing to wait for the shipping, which may take a couple of weeks in repairs, right? You do have, hey, as long as you have spare parts, I think that's a great, commitment. I mean, I personally think that there's a lot. I mean, as you have seen, there's a lot of reviews that I have done in my channel. But not every company is the same. And I prefer, and I always tell people, hey, spend a little more, but you get the support. You get the, at least you have a person to talk to. It's not something that just, they got your money and never gonna see it again. You're never gonna hear from them. You're never gonna see an update. I think those things are extremely important to have sustainability. Yes, I invest a little more, and a lot of people, maybe we can talk into this just a little bit. The price, right? Of the Punkt MP02 and some of your products are a little bit higher than your competitors. Like, I'll just pull out a phone here. Like, for example, this is a flip phone from TCL. They make them by the millions, right? And they sell them with KaiOS. And this is $79. Like, somebody can argue, hey, you can call, you can text, you can have whatever, things that you need. Why $399 for a Punkt MP02? What's the advantage? Am I not just paying for the aesthetics and the niche and all of those things if I can just call and text on these other devices?
When we communicate, we try as hard as we can in our communications to not to exclude that somebody can quite easily go out and buy a Nokia and do the same. So the cause is the same. Obviously, Punkt exists because design is such an important part of what Punkt does. So the ergonomics of a Punkt product, or the sensation that you have when it's in your hand, whether that's the weight, the materials, the time and effort that gets put also into the UI to keep it as minimal as possible while respecting, obviously, the usability, which these things might not look very complicated, but are very time consuming and important decisions that a company like Punkt, which isn't a huge company, has to make. Obviously, design and materials, in the case of Punkt, are a huge part of what we do. And so that automatically makes our cost of our retail price of our products go up. We don't have huge profit margins at all, but we spend money on what we make. And we don't have huge quantities. So we work in a space where we're conscious. It's almost like an artisan approach to technology. That doesn't work for everybody. Not everybody's that concerned. I know a lot of people who use the Nokia, and they have been doing so for years. But that depends how much you care. The same argument you could use for a wristwatch. You could have a Swatch, or you could have a Philippe Patek. It depends you as a person how much you care about the objects that you carry around and how they represent you. But we never profess that you can't pick up a Nokia or another phone that does the same if that's how you choose to live, if that's a lifestyle choice. Then if you want a cheap one, you can get a cheap one. If you want a more expensive and a more beautiful one, you can buy a Punkt. But that's the consumer who decides how to spend their money.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I agree. I mean, sometimes it's not only the design, but also the support, right? Like, if you have, I bought Nokia devices, the recent ones and the older ones, and there's a sea of a difference, right? And then the quality, and also the support. I know, this is not a it's a critique of HMD Global. They're focusing a lot on pushing out and buying and the nostalgia of the Nokia phones, but not really providing full accessibility, which I hope some things can be improved. For my personal, so I would go to a personal question. I know probably in Europe, Signal is bigger, right? And people use it all the time to communicate, things of that nature. Here in North America, at least in the United States, there's one feature that I know it's possible for the Punkt MP02 to have, but it's not enabled. And I want to understand the process, or is it coming? Because it's honestly the only reason why I don't use it more. So I have a work phone and I have my personal phone. My personal phone has always been the light phone for the past 2 years, and the Punkt has always been relegated to the work phone. There's two reasons because of that. The first one is Verizon compatibility. I know you guys don't have that because, well, you make one model that's GSM and you're trying to, it's global, right? Light phone makes two. And that contrast, I can take my Punkt to Europe and it will work and magically and or any other part of the world. So I really like that. But while I'm here in the States, I have to use, because of the area where I live, I have to use Verizon. But the second thing is group text messaging. So group SMS. I know the operating system is based on Android, and I have a lot of other Android dumb phones, right? So why can I not send group text messages on my Punkt MP02?
There's a limitation of resources when developing the user interface. So it is definitely something that we have noted down, not only you, but several other people from the States. So it's on the drawing board.
Okay. Well, that's good to hear. It's good to hear. Yeah. I mean, I know you guys have, developed different little applications, and it's a tinier, very small size. And of course you probably had to change some of those things.
Yep. So in the meanwhile, Pigeon does offer group messages.
Yeah.
But of course, not everybody is using Signal or Pigeon. But
yeah. And I'm thinking about coworkers that just use SMS, and I use Pigeon for calls and for text messaging with personal contacts, that do think about privacy and things of that nature. Another area is open sourcing, right? Like, there's something that it's part of the community, right? A lot of people want to improve, want to collaborate. So there's a couple questions here. One from Dan. Are Punkt phones rootable? We have Naomi. Will side loading packages on Punkt ever be possible? Things of that nature. Like, are you ever hoping to have contributions from the community, or is it always going to be in-house?
We're definitely hoping to have contributions from the community, and that is also part of Apostrophe that will have APIs out for in the future to develop certain features on the phone. By the time being, sideloading is not possible. I saw that was a question. Rootable, that is not possible. Can we toss out the Punkt OS and write our own? That will also not be possible, mostly because of security.
Mm-hmm.
We do want to have control of what kind of OS that is used on a Punkt phone, and currently that is Apostrophe.
Right. Okay. And
Pigeon is open source.
Yes.
Pigeon is open source.
I was going to say, if somebody wants to help on that end, they can definitely write for the Signal application.
The idea of Pigeon initially and working with the Signal protocol was it's a beautiful idea, perhaps a bit naive, but that anybody who has a feature phone is able to download an app for a feature phone that allows them to have encrypted communication. Mm-hmm. So if somebody else is using a different, let's use the example of the Nokia, just because it's the first one that comes to mind, probably the most talked about in terms of our competitors when it comes to text and calling phones. it's a lovely idea to think that users of voice phones can also access encrypted communication, which is something Punkt is the first feature phone manufacturer to do this.
Mhm.
So although, yes, we don't intend to make our apostrophe open source, I think it's a huge effort to make Pigeon and hopefully encourage the privacy as something important for also not just smartphone users, but also feature phone users around the world.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, that kind of helps a little bit more. Let's go back into a little bit of more philosophical questions, um, as to like, okay, so since creating this environment, so you now have a phone, you have a system. A lot of people think of the lifestyle of living with a dumb phone. Or living with a basic phone or a voice phone. There's so many definitions nowadays that we're trying to keep up with them, right? And it's a changing world. Like it's becoming more technologically inclined. How do you balance that in your personal lives? I know, Marsha, you said you have a tablet that you can use for smart things or things that are required in your area. But as the world progresses, how are you hoping to stay current with some of the newer developments?
I'm not sure how much we're able to talk about future developments in terms of product offerings, but we certainly have ideas and projects. Obviously, it takes longer than one would imagine because apostrophe is born because when we imagine a more connected device, there isn't really an operating system that fits those 8 principles of Punkt. And so possibly before making the device, you have to create the operating system. So yeah, there certainly are plans for the future to work towards a what we would consider a more smarter option, and a device that is able to allow people to be productive, focused, but at the same time be connected and work and be able to access the conveniences that they feel they can't live without sacrificing something.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm excited to hear that there's some other ideas
There
in
are,
the
yes,
making.
there are. I think I'd be fired. I can say anything.
Well, you also don't want to give competitive advantage to some of
Yeah,
your competitors. The
yeah.
reality is that it's a niche market, and there's a couple companies that are really standing out, and of course, you're wanting to remain at that. That's good to know. One question that was in the Reddit, so I posted this on Reddit for the community to ask some of the questions in advance, was introduction of Wi-Fi calling. So a lot of people don't have really good service where they live. Are you guys thinking of expanding the operating system in order to support some Wi-Fi calls?
Yeah, just as with the group messages is on the drawing board, we have heard back from the community that this is a highly requested feature. So, I mean, fingers crossed, hopefully in the future, we will be able to support Wi-Fi calling as well.
Mhm.
And I mean, I'm sound like a repetitive man now, but Pigeon has Wi-Fi calling.
Right.
Yeah,
Move to Signal. I think that's
Yeah, exactly.
yeah,
it's
I know
the
that the founder and CEO of Punkt, Peter Nebby, he lives in an area in Florence where he doesn't have great reception, and therefore he uses Pigeon for voice calls, telephone calls.
Okay. All right. Well, that's good to know that even some of the members, right, and the founders, they may use it in a different way. And it's an alternative, right?
Yeah.
A more private alternative. If anything, you're winning by using Pigeon. Um, I did have a little bit of kind of like a question in regards to not only the future, but support for people that you said that you can still update not only the operating system, but the applications. But some people may want to trade in and say, like, hey, do you have like a trade in program where I can send something back and get the new one, right? Like, I want to be updated, but the cost may be prohibitive for some people or shipping into different areas of the world. I know I've seen some people that is like, hey, is it available in Singapore? Is it available in the Philippines? How do I get shipping to all of these areas? So is there something that you guys are working towards? Hey, let's think of, you want a newer Punkt, you have an older Punkt, let's work some
We do
components.
have something currently running for MP02 first generation users. If they want to try the new generation, they can send their phone back and get a 20% discount on the new phone. It may not always sound ideal, but they're just very difficult decisions to make. We're very conscious also when we launched the new generation, which has some subtle hardware and software adjustments made to it just because it's 2 years old, so we have to keep it up. But we didn't raise the price of the MP02 new generation. We're very conscious that these decisions impact our consumers, but we try very hard to make a very decent transition. So yes, currently, if you have an original MP02, sorry, you can get a new generation MP02, and there is a discount available of 20%. Obviously, if you we have a 30 days warranty, so if you bought a month ago, I don't know, first generation, and now you want the new one, then you just send your phone back and you get it. It's pretty simple. You get a refund and then you can buy a new one. It's the same price. We did have thought about this a lot because we rely on our very loyal and committed customers, but obviously when you make business choices, you have to sort of draw the line at some point. But we're very conscious that this is also important, and very often on one-to-one cases, if people write to us and they pour their heart out, we reach different. It's not a protocol. We try to be reasonable.
Right. No, I think that's great. I know I mentioned in my review of the Punkt, the new generation, a trade-in program is amazing. And 20%, hey, that gets you a pretty good replacement for less price. And I mean, that's essentially what it's really good to hear that you guys have some of that in it. So I'd like to know a little bit more of your personal decision to work for Punkt or to have a basic phone, right? Like, what kind of led you to this point in life that you guys are in now?
Yeah, so I think it was my brother that first heard of Punkt and the alarm clock ACO1 when it was shipped out, and then I've always been interested in tech, so I kept an eye on the company, and when the MP01 was announced, I got in touch and was lucky enough to be a beta tester. And then I was studying at university, and then 3 years ago, I started working for Punkt. And then so I do have a smartphone. I do have an iPhone, which I do love very much because it is huge convenience for me. The maps, there's so many things that are very nice to have in your pocket, of course, but also having a smartphone or having a MP02 when I go on vacation or during weekends or when I just want to be by myself or by the one people that knows me or knows my other number, etc., etc. It's just easier life for me to be able to disconnect truly from what has become a very connected world. It's not always an advantage being disconnected, not being disconnected.
I, on the other hand, have always been a technophobe, so it wasn't that difficult. I came from the publishing world of publishing, and in the transition from paper to digital, where I was working before, there was obviously a cutback, so I started to look. I've always, even in the publishing business, was very passionate and always have been very passionate about design and philosophy cross design. I found absolutely fascinating, and I think it was amazing how brave Petter was in such a competitive and fast-moving business sector that was able to actually put his foot down and, in terms of marketing, be very culturally led and education led in his approach to what is trying to bring an alternative to the market, and I think that's a hugely commendable thing to do in a very competitive world. So yeah, I was very excited when I came across Punkt and started obviously working in the communications for them, because it ticks so many boxes for me.
All right. Well, that's good to know. And I mean, it's also, I know, for pretty much every company that it's in this niche that I've interviewed, it's not like you have to use it in order to work
Yeah,
there. It's
no,
more
no.
of like you have it available and you understand the process, you understand why these things. So it's very good to hear that too. That you're working with that. We have a couple of extra questions. I'm gonna bring them um from the live stream. I'm sorry, from the Reddit page. So something that a lot of people are uh, interested is there any plans to make the phone waterproof and kind of like create a more ruggedized version, or is it go against maybe the design of it, or things of that.
I think if we could, currently we have the IP52 or 58 standard on our MP02, which makes it splash proof. Of course, it's not waterproof, but if we were able to hire that standard without taking away from the sign, very much love to do that, because it's another convenience.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Well, that's good to know. Um, so as we start getting into the last part of the live stream, um, I'd like to know a little bit more of what are your practices that you have been able to do now that you have the ability to disconnect, right? So for Marsha, what are some of the things that you're into that you have gained time to do that before, when you have all of the little
That's an embarrassing question. You have no idea. There are so many things, including bird watching, which sounds absurd, but hey, it's the truth. So no, so many. I find it. I have obviously teenage daughters. I find sometimes I feel sad for them that they spend so much time on their sofa scrolling, when there are so many things to do, even in a period obviously where we're uh, limited in our possibilities. We can do a lot outside, inside. I mean, one of the things that has automatically happened for me working with Punkt is that not having technology in my bedroom, and only where in the space by where I work, has actually helped me enormously in my before work and after work routine. So because I don't have that tendency to just reach on the bedside table and start seeing what's going on in the world, whether that's reading the news or checking Instagram, but it's not by default for me at all. It means that there's a space between my waking day and my sleeping day, which is very, very, very tech free. And I think this is probably of all the things the most positive that Punkt, being a Punkt user, has brought into my life. So this means that it's a less of a rude awakening in the morning, and it's certainly easier to sleep in the evening if you don't have the blue light. If you haven't, at least an hour, we recommend it should be an hour before you sleep, that you don't look at the blue light from the screen, because that will help you to sleep better.
Yeah.
And sleep is a hugely important part of well-being. So I think in terms of mental health, it's very underestimated how much you can gain in terms of well-being when you control your usage of technology. And
Yeah.
that's not saying abandon the smartphone, but at least become more conscious of the fact that it does take up a lot of attention, and it is a bit of a strain.
Okay. One question that goes with that, as you mentioned, the blue light. We have Hyperion saying the actual MP02 has a TFT panel display. Any plans for an e-ink display like the Light phone in the future?
There's not currently any e-ink plans in the future.
But it's one of those things that we talk about all the time.
Yeah, I mean, this is
A good
It certainly
question.
rings a bell. Good
Yeah.
question.
Yeah. It's
All
a
right.
good-
It is.
One more question from the audience. As we start closing, guys, make sure to put your questions. What is the number one thing you hope a person gains from using a Punkt phone?
A better conversation with your peers.
Okay. All right. Well, as we start closing, just any final remarks that you guys have. Again, thank you very much for this time. I think it's very helpful for the community. You gotten to hear some ideas from them, and also to answer some of the hot questions that we've had for a while. There's some limitations. You guys are working on it. It's good to hear. But any final remarks that you guys have for the community?
No, just thank you so much for tuning in and being so obviously actively engaged in what Punkt is doing. We genuinely appreciate that, and it's very, very important for our moving forward to understand what the limitations are in our product offering, and also how people find using and experiencing and hopefully enjoying our products. So yeah, thank you everyone for tuning in.
Yep.
And
Thank you, everyone.
for your continued interest in what we're doing, because it's not a given. It's very much appreciated.
Yeah. How can people contact you if they have a question, if they're trying to see, hey, do you ship to my country, or is there any way that I can get it
Everywhere.
closer? So it's global.
No, they can contact us by phone even. I think we're one of the few companies that still has a phone number on our website, which is very deliberate. So then if someone answers it or not because it's the wrong phone, I can't say. But no, we have an email at info@punkt.ch. We have a telephone number on our website. And of course, we have our social media channels. So we have Twitter, which is a very active platform for Punkt. And we also have a Twitter support channel where sometimes if people don't receive answers that they need in the time that they need from customer care, we've noticed that other people write to Twitter support. We have a very, very active and social media manager who is constantly in contact also with the company and with customer care. So generally, as far as we can be, we're very reachable.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you very much for coming in. I appreciate it. Thank you everyone for watching. I hope it was helpful. And if you guys have any other pressing questions, make sure to reach out in the channels on Twitter, email, or you guys can give a phone call, which is amazing. I think it is. Again, it's speaking to that support, right? Like, you're investing in something, you're getting support. It's not going to be something that it's just, hey, they got my money and I never heard from them again. So that's something that's very good. And again, thank you guys for being here. We have some thanks from the community right there. And again, just thank you for being here. And hopefully we can do this later on as more updates come, as more APIs are released. I'm really encouraged to hear that, Philip, as the community may be able to tinker and help with some of the development and things of that nature. But thank you guys. Thank you for everything. We're going to end the stream now. And if you guys have any extra questions or anything else, again, Twitter, email, or give them a good old-fashioned phone call.
Okay, bye. Bye, everybody. Have a nice afternoon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.